Welcome to Stoked, the podcast that helps adventure elopement photographers hit six figures and beyond in their businesses without hustling on social media. I'm your host, Megan McPhail, a former burnt-out emergency veterinarian that quit my hard-earned career to become an elopement photographer. Now I'm living a life I absolutely love, full of travel, adventure, and financial abundance, and I am hell-bent on helping you do the same. Are you ready to start booking out your calendar with dream couples in breathtaking locations and feeling genuinely stoked about your elopement photography business, life, and bank account? Then let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, it's your host, Megan McPhail, and today I have a special guest, Jessica Kent. She is a Florida-based elopement photographer who also books elopements out in Washington, and I'm so excited to pick her brain today. Thank you so much for joining the podcast, Jessica.
Hi, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so we've worked together for years now. You're like one of the OG members of the Elopement Photographer Mastermind, and you've stayed in there forever. Your story is so cool because Florida is not known for big, adventurous elopements, and you book like all day elopements down there when a lot of people are like, I just want a few photos on the beach and like a little ceremony on the beach, and I'm cool with that. So, like, how did you start booking these all-day elopements in Florida? What did that look like?
Yeah, I'm definitely one of the few photographers who book all-day elopements here in Florida. I think you probably know all of them, Megan.
Yeah. Might have a
But
hand in them, yeah.
might have. But yeah, Florida, like you said, is not known for like big all-day elopements like they are out west in like Washington and Colorado. And so it's really been me having to like carve that niche here in Florida by leading by example,
hmm
basically.
Yeah.
So it did start by me planning some styled shoots so that I could show inspiration for what an all day elopement could be in Florida. And then it's just kind of snowballed from there.
So what were these styled shoots that you did? Like, what does an all-day elopement in Florida look like besides just hanging out on a beach for a couple hours?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, some of them or a lot of them do still involve the beach.
You got
But
to.
yeah. But sometimes they can be super chill. Like I've done actual elopements in styled shoots where we've gone to the beach and set up like a luxury picnic and started there before then heading into the city and having an adventure in the city and just
hmm
exploring the town, breweries, coffee shops, all kinds of places. I think
hmm
that once you redefine adventure from just hiking in the mountains, then it opens up so many more possibilities because it could be exploring a museum or just having like a date day, but it's your
hmm
elopement.
Yeah, I love that. And you do like boat rides and stuff too, right? Like sunset cruises or something. Like, I feel like that could be such a cool elopement experience in Florida.
Yeah, true. So I do also do more adventurous things. And a lot of that involves being on the water because we're surrounded by water here in
hmm
Florida. But yeah, I've done quite a few sailboat elopements, and I have a couple more coming up next year, I believe. And those are so much fun because basically I help the couple find like a private charter. They get the whole boat to themselves and we hire a captain. You know, the boat usually comes with a captain
hmm
and kind of just tell him what we want to do. And then we all get to sit back and relax and just enjoy the water.
I love that. That is so cool. So how did you start like attracting these people or kind of educating them that Florida is more than just the ceremony on the beach? Did you post on social media? Did you blog? Like, how did you start educating couples that there's more to it?
In addition to having photos on Instagram, I did do a lot of blogging about the different elopements that could happen, timeline examples, and I also did a few videos that were like fairly popular on TikTok where I
hmm
was talking through timelines that I made as examples of what you could do in Florida.
That's so cool. What has been like one of your favorite all day elopements in Florida so far?
Oh gosh. I love all of them, but probably one of my favorites is whenever I get to go back to St. Augustine, Florida, because I
Hmm.
grew up just outside of St. Augustine and it is
Oh.
such a cute little town. I did an all day elopement there in the spring and we really just explored the city. We stopped and ate crepes for breakfast. We went and visited this castle that
Mm,
this man built by himself in the 80s and
that's
took
cool.
photos.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then we ended our day on the beach with a luxury picnic and them exchanging vows. So that was
Aw.
really fun.
That's so sweet. And it just goes to show that, like, you don't have to jam pack their schedule with a million things to really have a great kind of day long adventure around in Florida. Like, it's not about squeezing in a million things. Like, the way you described it seemed really stress free and just kind of romantic.
Yeah, I find a lot of my couples come to me wanting just something that's really laid back and
Hmm.
stress free.
Yeah, perfect. So let's say, you're in a room with some photographers and they're like, nobody wants to book anything other than like an hour, or I can't be an elopement photographer because I don't live in Colorado and don't go hiking. Like, what would you tell them?
I think it really comes down to mindset because I was the same for a really long time. I felt kind of like really jealous of all the people who lived on the West Coast who could just like go out to Joshua Tree on a whim or up on a
Hmm.
mountain or whatever. And I was like, what can I do here? But yeah, it just all comes down to mindset. Like I mentioned earlier, adventure is really what you make of it. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be hiking or like some huge thing. It is definitely a mindset. Sometimes you just have to show that your area is cool and that there is a lot more to do than just stand on a beach for an hour.
Yeah. So I know you're a big fan of blogging. So how did you use blogging to really build your business in Florida?
Yeah, so I am a fan of blogging because it really helps with my SEO and showing up on Google. And so I've found that by blogging inspiration and also talking about what the day could be and showing the photos on the blog of what it looks like. And then people searching me on Google, it's just really helped people trust me that they can have like a really fun all day elopement without having to just spend just a couple of hours at the courthouse, like hit it
Mhm.
and quit it. And yeah, it's brought me so much business when people can find me just on Google.
Mhm. I love that. What have you been doing on TikTok? Because I know you get some bookings from TikTok too.
I have. I've gotten like a few bookings, not like a million, but basically I go on TikTok and my most successful videos are really just me talking to the camera. A lot of the time I have a green screen with either my photos or a timeline that I've
Mhm.
created and just me talking about what could be for your elopement
Mhm.
day because so many people they want to elope but they just think all their options are is just to go to the courthouse.
So really on TikTok, you're educating people on what they can do and having them dream a little bit bigger than what they think is possible. Cause I know I get the question all the time from photographers. What do you do for 8 hours on an elopement day? And if photographers can't even think of what you can do, then couples are definitely in the dark about that. So just kind of giving them examples, not just of the timelines, but also of the photos that they could get. Like, I'm sure it helps them just imagine something grander than what they were originally thinking.
Yeah, it's a lot of education and inspiration.
Yeah, like those are the two perfect words, education and
Mhm.
inspiration. And you're not just booking in Florida, you also book elopements in Washington. I mean, that's like as far away from Florida as you can get in the mainland US. So, how does that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, well, honestly, I had never really thought about Washington. I think most of my life, when people mentioned Washington, I'd be like, do you mean Washington, D.C.? Growing up here on the East Coast, that's, I guess, the Washington we hear about the most. But a few years ago, over the pandemic, one of my good friends moved to Washington and she was like, you should come visit me. So cool here. And I was like, yeah, okay, I guess. And airline tickets were super cheap because of the pandemic. And so I flew out there and spent a long weekend with her. And I was like, this place is so cool. It's so pretty. I love it here. And so after that, I just figured that I would love to spend more time out on the West Coast and kind of started working on targeting Washington.
I love that. So how did you target Washington? Walk us through what that entails.
Yeah. So since I don't live over there, I live a good distance away from Washington. It really started with me finding styled shoots and content retreats that were going on in Washington. Because since I had only visited there the one time, I didn't even really know it very well. So those weekend content retreats really helped me get to know the state and the different areas that I was interested in working in more. And also, obviously, it gave me photos so that I can show inspiration to couples who want to elope there.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was a lot more blogging.
Yep. Blogging.
A lot more blogging. And then also Google Ads, which I also do run.
Yeah. And then how many elopements have you booked in Washington? I feel like, you're like bread and butter as Florida, and then you book these Washington elopements kind of like as fun bonuses almost. And you get to probably visit your friend. Is she still out there?
She actually just moved. She moved.
Oh, no.
I know. She moved to Arizona, which is also really pretty. But no, she's not there anymore, which is too bad. But that's okay. I'm still going to go out to Washington. I have booked, I'm going to say at this point, I think I've booked 3 elopements out in Washington. I don't always run ads. I kind of run them seasonally because ideally I'd like to be out in Washington during the summer because that is our slow season here in Florida because it's 100 degrees with 100% humidity. And nobody wants to be outside all day in that. I don't want to be outside all day in that.
Especially not like with makeup on or something like that. If you're a bride, like that sounds awful. So it makes sense to try to get bookings during the summer somewhere cool so you can get out of Florida, get out of the heat. So how do you kind of like set yourself apart to get these bookings, because there's tons of Washington elopement photographers, right? People are always talking about how the Pacific Northwest is saturated, the market's saturated and stuff. You hear that about all kinds of different markets like Colorado and Utah and whatever. So like, how are you getting bookings as a Florida girl?
Yeah, that is true. There are a ton of photographers out west because it's so gorgeous. I mean, I'd move out there if I could. But I think what has really come down to it when couples book me over someone who lives out there, it's usually come down to they just really like me as a person and they trust me and my vision for their day and they feel comfortable with me.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point to like bring up for the people listening, that creating that connection with somebody is so important. And that is a big reason for why people book the elopement photographers that they book, because of not only their photos, but also because of who they are as a person, and they can see themselves spending the day with that person, in this case, you. So that's super cool. So are there any other destinations that you're going to try to target or go after? Is it just going to be Florida and Washington forever, or what else is on the books for you?
Well, I definitely need to work a little harder on targeting Iceland. I'd love to go back to Iceland. I just haven't really
I think
worked
the
that
same
hard
thing.
It's so gorgeous there, and it's just so easy once you're there to get around and see all the really fun things. It's a really great place to go. Iceland. And then I have no way of targeting this currently, but I would love to do something out in Japan or New Zealand. I think
Ooh.
that would be like top of the list dream
Yeah.
for me.
Ooh, I don't know of anybody who targets Japan for elopements, but I feel like how freaking cool would that be? Oh
I
man.
know. I think a lot of people are worried about probably the language barrier.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, coming from the US at least, once you're in Japan, everything is so inexpensive and it
Mm.
is so easy to travel around. They make it
Mm-hmm.
so easy to travel through their train system.
Yeah.
So it
That
makes
just
it great. I mean, they have mountains, obviously. There's at
mm-hmm.
least Mount Fuji.
Yeah.
And they have beautiful coastlines and really cool cities. So I think it would be
Yeah.
great.
Exploring the cities would even be just so cool with like the architecture or like cherry blossom season or something like that. Like that could be
Yeah.
so
The
freaking cool.
temples too.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I love that. So, what are some things that kind of set you apart as a photographer when people are looking at your photos? What are some things that you do a lot of that people might be like, ooh, she's the photographer for me?
This is one of the hardest questions when people ask me what sets me apart.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I do that I offer to all my couples is that I include a lot of gifts, which are like those moving Harry Potter photos, how I like to think of them.
Yeah.
And then I also love playing with double exposures, which are a little more artistic, a little more dreamlike. And I
Yeah.
think they're really fun.
Hey, photographer, do you dream of having a successful elopement photography business but don't know where to start? Imagine having the confidence to double or triple your prices, booking your calendar solid with dream couples and breathtaking locations, and feeling genuinely stoked about your business, your life, and your bank account? Then I'd like to introduce you to Stoked Academy, the go-to membership community for adventure elopement photographers that are ready to scale their businesses to six figures and beyond, all without hustling on social media. In Stoked Academy, you'll get access to everything you need to build a six-figure business, like mastering marketing strategies, pricing for profit, elopement planning, worksheets, templates, spreadsheets, and so much more. Plus, you'll connect with a positive, supportive community of elopement photographers who are as passionate as you are. And the best part? It's insanely affordable, like less than the cost of a new memory card for your camera. Plus, as a member, you'll get to join me for a monthly group coaching call where we dive deep into strategies that will take your business to the next level. If this sounds awesome, then head over to stokedacademy.com to learn more about the membership and join us. I can't wait to see you in there. Yeah, so they can see those unique photos and gifts and then your personality and kind of get to know you and kind of book you based on all of those things that really set you apart. That's really cool. So, what has been your biggest transformation as a photographer? Because I kind of want you to tell your story about, was it your neighbors or your family,
My
friends?
parents, neighbors, yeah.
I want you to tell the story and talk about the transformation you've had because it's been big.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest changes that I've had is when I first started photographing, I was photographing larger weddings and then I decided to focus on elopements. But even when I niched down to elopements, I was still stuck in that mindset of like, I'm going to be a high ticket elopement photographer at $1,500. Like, that's a lot of money for
Yeah.
an elopement. And that was a personal mindset that I had to get over. But yeah, I also had an experience where my parents' neighbors, they were having basically an elopement slash backyard wedding. It was going to be really cute. They were going to go to this really cute area of Florida and then have a reception later on in their backyard with their family and friends. And I quoted them at $1,500, thinking like, I've done it. I know I'm worth it. This high ticket price. And they were like, oh, we were thinking like less than $1,000.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh. So at that point, I then was again like, oh my gosh, like, is $1,500 like unattainable to be
Mhm.
paid as an elopement photographer, especially here in Florida with our hit it and quit it beach weddings or beach
Yeah.
elopements. And so it took a lot of mindset and working on that, and
Mhm.
then kind of also working on my confidence too as a
Mhm.
photographer to then be charging more because now on average, couples spend closer to 5,000 with me.
Yeah. That's amazing, and that's really what you need to profit, like, I tell everybody you should be averaging 5K to be able to, like, truly profit in your business, and here you are doing it in Florida when somebody didn't even wanna spend $1,000 with you, and, like, can we talk about how disheartening it is when you are dealing with price hagglers and they're so vocal, and you start thinking, yeah, they make you think, like, oh my God, I can't charge more, like they truly have you thinking about that. So, how did you get over that hump and get up into this $5,000 price range?
Yeah. In addition to mindset, it really comes down to a lot of marketing. So I really had to learn how to tell people or show people that not only was I worth it to spend $5,000 on an elopement with me, but
Mhm.
that they should value their own day more
Yeah.
than less than $1,000 for their
Mhm.
elopement day. So yeah, it came down to a lot of marketing, showing people what it looked like, what was possible, and also on my website showing like all the value that comes with an all-day elopement photographer who helps you with planning and making your day a reality.
Yeah. So, what are these couples like that are booking you for $5,000? Are they just the best? They've got to be just the best couples, right?
Yeah, it really is like that meme where you get a text from a client who's spent like, we'll say $1,000 with you, and they're like, my whole life is on the line. How are you going to change my life with this $1,000 I've given you? To those clients who just like drop $5,000 on you, and all they say is like, money sent, what's next?
Yeah.
You know, it really
Mhm.
is like that. They're so chill and laid back. It's so amazing. I'm not like hounded by messages about, oh my gosh, what are you doing about this? It's just like, we trust you and everything is going to be fine.
Yeah. I think that's the big difference is that they trust you. I think the folks that only care about the money side of things, they never build trust with somebody. They only want a deal. And so they nitpick and micromanage. And then here you are, you've built trust with people. They connect with you. They've chosen you out of the sea of other photographers. And they're like, this is the person that we want to help. And yeah, we're not going to nitpick her or micromanage her because we have our full trust in her. We know we're paying money for an amazing experience. So that's a huge change. How does your business look right now that you're booking 5K elopements with dream couples in Florida? Like, what does your life and business look like?
So it looks like I have a lot more weekends to be able to spend free time with my family. I'm not having to book like every single weekend at those lower prices to make money. I can be like, I'm only taking on one or two elopements a month. And
Mhm.
then I get to spend the rest of my time traveling or with my friends or going and visiting family. So it's pretty nice.
I love that for you. Yay. So, what advice do you give to the elopement photographers out there that are probably listening that work with price hagglers and they don't feel like they could charge more? They don't feel like they live in a cool enough place. What inspiration can you give those guys?
Honestly, my best piece of advice that I can probably give people who were where I was in that spot is probably to hire you, Megan, to help them with their business.
Oh, man. Well, thank
I
you.
mean, honestly, I tell people all the time, they're like, oh my gosh, what happened? And I'm like, I hired a business coach and
Hmm.
it's been amazing.
Yeah. Because you've had experiences where you've gotten some pretty lackluster mentorships in the past, you know? Like, what were those like?
Yeah, so they were more like one-offs, like one-day mentorship things, but it just really left me still confused. It wasn't very in-depth. It wasn't very like clear
Mm-hmm.
about what I was supposed to be doing next.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, after finding you and working with you, I mean, you lay out the plan very clearly. Everything is very step by step, building blocks, you
Yeah.
know, it's proven to work.
Yeah. Oh man. And you're starting to do a little bit of education for photographers as well, right? Like you've been kind of inspired to share your thoughts. Where's that come from? Because I feel like you talk with photographers a lot and they say and do weird things, and you're like, I've got to teach you the right ways.
Yeah, it really comes from just me interacting with all the photographers. I go to a lot of, even now, I still attend a lot of styled shoots here in Florida just because I think it's so much fun. It's like a
Hmm.
creative outlet for me. But I do meet a lot of newer photographers and I get to talk to them. And there are just so many misconceptions about what you should be doing in business or just so many things that seem really confusing and it's really hard to find a clear answer about it in a Facebook group where you don't know where those people are coming from with their
Hmm.
advice. And so I just feel like I can really help some of the little photographers that I've met.
Aw, little baby photographers. That's what I like to
Yeah.
think of them as. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the conventional like wisdom that's just on Instagram or social media or Facebook groups is like it's not that great. And there's a lot of people with scarcity mindsets and they want to gatekeep and they think they have to compete to get bookings and all that kind of stuff. And like we just know that that stuff's not true, you know? So if you had like one single piece of advice other than hiring me,
I don't know. That one's a good one.
let's put on your coaching hat
Okay.
because I get this question all the time and I'm kind of interested in seeing how you would respond to it. But people will like DM me and be like, what's the one thing I should do to be an elopement photographer? And the answer is there is no one thing. But for if somebody asks that, how would you answer that? I'm putting you on the spot for put your coaching hat on.
I'll just pretend like I'm talking to myself a few years ago when
Yeah.
I first decided I wanted to start doing elopements, but I would say that you should show what you want to shoot
Mm-hmm.
more online on your Instagram. You should talk about it. If you're coming from a place where right now you're doing like big weddings and families, then maybe you can like still do those things as you transition, but on your social media, you should just really start talking about elopements and showing elopements even if those are styled elopements, even if
Mm-hmm.
you're just begging your best friends to get back into their wedding clothes and you take some photos of them,
Mm-hmm.
that would be my best piece of advice on where to start.
Yeah, portfolio building is huge. Styled shoots are huge. You've definitely used styled shoots to help with your business. And you just said you still do them just for fun, which I
Mhm.
have even thought about doing just to be like something low pressure where I can be creative and just get some cool photos, you know? But styled shoots also help people learn how to plan elopements. And I think that's where some people forget that like there's so much planning that goes into a styled shoot that is directly applicable to planning an elopement day. And so you can really kind of kill two birds with one stone by planning your own styled shoots and also getting the hang of planning elopements because that's a big part of all of this that I think holds a lot of people back is they're like, even if I get booked for an elopement, how do I plan it? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that when I planned my first couple of styled elopements, it really does help you learn how to think about logistics. Like if we're starting in location A, then how long is it going to take us to go to location B? And how long are we going to spend at location B before going to location C? And all those
Hmm.
things that you maybe don't think about immediately, especially for me coming from big weddings where everything pretty much happens in one place most of the
Hmm.
time. And as a photographer of larger, like more traditional quote unquote weddings, you're not usually the one having to plan them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And yeah, come up with like we should do this at this time because of the lighting or because we'll be hungry and there's a place to get food or whatever. There's like a lot of moving parts and a lot more kind of like upfront work that needs to be done with elopements, and like getting in that practice is just going to make you more confident in the long run. Cool. So where can people find you on like Instagram and TikTok and your website?
Yes. So I recently rebranded and I love it.
Yay!
So everything is Wild Tides Photography, both on Instagram and TikTok and my website.
Perfect.
Yes, come on over and say hi.
Yeah, definitely follow along with Jessica. She's doing cool stuff. She's doing her Florida elopements. She's got her branding on lock now. I love your branding. And hopefully you've inspired some people that you can book all day elopements in some kind of like less well-known locations. You can carve out your own niche. You can book those dream clients. You're not stuck at booking, or hoping to book $1,000 elopement here and there, that you can truly build the business that allows you to hang out with your family and do 1 or 2 elopements a month. I mean, everything you said is like what so many people want.
Yes, I agree.
It's way better than spending your weekends shooting traditional
Doubleheader weddings.
Yeah, way better. So cool. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Jessica. It was so much fun to talk with you, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of Stoked. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. If you're looking for more inspiring elopement photography content, check us out on Instagram at Megan McPhail. And if you'd like to hear more about my business coaching and how I can personally help you hit 6 figures as an elopement photographer, then check out my website at www.meganmcphail.com.